Floorboards, clothes of people whose families were still searching. One mother screamed outside the building, "Why? What did my son do to you?" Harmon stood calmly, a faint smile, as if none of it concerned him. In story. Our story today comes from Germany, specifically Hanover, after World War I, in the year 1923. The night was heavy. The cold cut deep into the bones. Fog wrapped the streets like a shroud. The war was over, but hunger wasn't. Money had become worthless paper, and people were eating anything just to survive the day. In the middle of that darkness, there was a small boy named Robert, 10 years old, hungry, wearing thin clothes, lost, with no one waiting for him. He was standing in front of the train station, not knowing where to go or what to do. A man approached him. He looked completely ordinary, clean, a calm voice, a reassuring smile. "What's wrong, son? Why are you alone? Come with me. I have hot soup, a real meal. You'll be full, warm, and you can sleep safely." The child saw no danger. He saw safety. He saw an adult speaking gently in a world full of cruelty. So he went with him without asking questions. They entered a small apartment on Romerstrasse. The door closed. Silence became heavy. And in that moment, the mask fell. Without a knife, Harmon lunged at the boy's neck, burying his teeth into his throat like a vampire ritual. Minutes passed, and the child's body turned into raw material. Hours later, morning came. Neighbors smelled food that made their mouths water. One woman told her husband, "God, Fritz really knows how to cook." That same night, those neighbors bought cheap sausages and meat from him. They were hungry. No one asked where the meat came from. No one imagined that the child standing in the street yesterday had become a meal today. This story isn't fiction. But to understand how this monster began and how he ended, we need to go back. Fritz Harmon didn't come from nowhere. He was born in 1879 into a broken home, a cruel father who called him a fool, a sick, exhausted mother. His childhood was filled with beatings, reform schools, and mental institutions. He grew up feeling rejected, unwanted. He joined the army and was discharged due to psychological disorders. He grew angry at the world, seeing humans as tools, not souls. The strangest and most terrifying part, he became a police informant. Sometimes he wore an armband and stood at the train station, stopping young men. "Your papers? Come with me, I'll help you." People trusted him. He stood beside the police. His voice was low, his face completely ordinary. And that's the most dangerous kind. The question that ignited rage was simple. How did he live like this for so many years? The answer was worse than anyone imagined. Harmon carried an official police informant ID. When neighbors complained about the smell of blood or muffled noises, the police would come, see the ID, and apologize. Even worse, some victims were taken from inside the police station itself. Harmon would sit there, point at homeless young men who had been detained, and tell officers, "Leave them with me, I'll give them work." No one ever saw them again. The victims were poor young men and lost children, hungry, exhausted. Harmon saw the weakness in their faces. He approached, smiled, talked. Then they disappeared. Their families searched police stations and hospitals with no answers. One mother said years later in an investigation, "My son went out looking for work. He said he'd be back soon. I waited for him with dinner. And the next day, then a week, and then I understood. Waiting became my life." A father said, "I thought he ran away. I said he was just a reckless boy. But when they found his clothes in that man's house, my heart shattered." A neighbor said after the truth came out, "I used to thank him for the meat. I told him, 'God bless you.' When I found out the truth, I vomited for days, not from the food, but from guilt." The apartment wasn't a home. It was a workplace, and there was a partner, Hans Brons. Harmon's story is incomplete without him. Hans wasn't just an assistant, he was the driver, the instigator. Young, handsome, confident, and Harmon was obsessed with him. Some nights, Hans chose the victim. He would point at a young man he knew and say, "I want his clothes." That was it. That sentence was a death sentence. Harmon obeyed, not for the crime, but to please Hans. After that, Hans handled the evidence, boiling bones in large pots until no trace remained. Then, the river. The shocking truth is this: Harmon never owned a licensed butcher shop. No store, no sign. He wasn't an official butcher, he was a traveling one. His small apartment in Altstadt wasn't a shop, it was the slaughterhouse. After preparing the meat, he didn't hang it or display it, he packed it into small wooden boxes or heavy backpacks. Then he went out. Walking at night, knocking at the back doors of cheap restaurants, entering low bars, standing in dark corners of the market. He would slowly open the bag, pulling out meat wrapped in old newspapers. And people didn't ask questions. After World War I, Germany was starving, truly starving. Any meat was a treasure. His smartest lie was this: this is smuggled pork from a nearby farm, away from government slaughterhouses and taxes. Buyers felt clever. They thought they had beaten the system. Good meat, cheap price. Never imagining they were buying human flesh. Sometimes Harmon played the generous man. He cooked in his apartment, invited poor neighbors and homeless people. Meat soup, a warm meal, free. They thanked him, loved him, defended him. And who would report a man who feeds the hungry in a time when people are dying of hunger? So why did no one question the taste? The answer is brutal and simple: hunger. He drowned everything in spices, heavy salt, strong black pepper, sharp onions. When a person is close to starving to death, they don't look for quality, they look for survival. Imagine the scene. You're sitting in a cheap restaurant, ordering minced meat. The owner just bought it hours earlier from a strange man who came through the back door at midnight, left a heavy bag, no paperwork, no questions. That silence is what let the crime live for years. The lure was always calm, the process calculated, the selling hidden behind hunger and inflation. Cheap meat in a time where nothing was cheap. People praised him, called him clever, and he believed society was his partner because it bought and didn't ask. In the middle of all this, one mother refused to stop. She searched police stations, hospitals, the train station. Her son's name echoed without answer. One day, walking through the neighborhood, she saw him, Fritz, standing there, wearing her son's shirt. The shirt she had washed with her own hands, the button she had sewn with white thread. She stood in front of him, her voice trembling. "Tell me, where is my son?" Harmon looked at her calmly, didn't blink. While adjusting the shirt, he said, "I haven't seen him. Maybe he traveled to another city for work." She stood there, feeling her heart collapse, unable to scream, unable to move. And then she walked away. He continued his day as usual, as if she wasn't human, as if the shirt wasn't a soul. In June 1924, the river couldn't hold the truth anymore. The Line River began to speak. When police drained parts of it, they didn't find scattered bones. They found piles, entire mounds of skulls, specific locations behind Harmon's house. More than 500 bone fragments were pulled from the water. The precision was so disturbing that forensic doctors initially believed they came from a medical school. No one imagined this was home work. Children playing found a skull, then bones, then catastrophe. More than 500 bones belonging to more than 20 young men and children whose names were missing for months. People connected the dots. They said, "We always saw Fritz with young men, then they disappeared." Police raided the house, found old stains beneath the floorboards, clothes of people whose families were still searching. One mother screamed outside the building, "Why? What did my son do to you?" Harmon stood calmly, a faint smile, as if none of it concerned him. In court, all of Hanover was stunned. Harmon confessed to 24 murders. Laughing, he said maybe more. He couldn't remember. The judge asked, "About the meat?" He answered coldly, "People were hungry. I provided food." A victim's relative screamed, "You didn't provide food, you stole lives." He didn't care. During interrogation, it was clear he was mentally broken. He said he entered episodes, that during the acts, he felt like he was in another world. He only realized what he had done when everything was over. He called his victims dolls, and he said something that silenced the room. "Sometimes I cried after I did it, while preparing them." A broken child inside the body of a monster. He was sentenced to death by guillotine.
In April 1925, the blade fell. The story officially ended, but the horror didn't. To this day in Hanover, families still tell their children stories about the time of hunger, about a neighbor who looked completely normal, about food that was cooked and eaten without anyone knowing the truth. And in every story, the same sentence is repeated: he didn't look like anything was wrong. Fritz Harmon wasn't just a killer. He was the result of hunger, madness, and silence. And the most dangerous thing to a human being is another human being. And here we're left with a terrifying question. How many people in Hanover were searching for a missing loved one while unknowingly eating a piece of them? Proof that the ugliest evils sometimes come with a calm smile and a quiet voice. After his execution, they cut his head and took it to a university in Germany so scientists could study what was wrong with the mind of this madman. 90 years after his execution, it was finally burned. May he burn wherever he is. This is the real photo of Fritz Harmon. Follow us to discover true stories more terrifying than fiction.